Wow. So we are actually live this time on LinkedIn. Um, so thank you so much for everybody who's going to show up. Um, really quickly, I scheduled an event, um, and LinkedIn, of course, had issues with the event. So I actually had to cancel that event, just go into my dashboard and relaunch. So, Garen, if you're watching, please do me a favor. Um, Copy the link to this stream here or whether through my profile and go into the event page that I had. I know I'm asking you a big favor, and just paste the link there and tell people to come over here, um, because we are getting this going on. So, um, just to get a few clearing things out of the way, I just wanted to mention to everybody here, um, do me a favor. So thank you so much, first of all, for joining us this evening. Um, I want to give a shout out to a couple of our sponsors for the show. First of all, sponsor, give a big shout out to our sponsors over at the Pirate Syndicate. Uh, Me and my buddy Russ Johns are now working to put coursework together. We're also putting workshops and classes together so people who are interested in live streaming can go there and check it out. So, see the hashtag, this is his shirt, kindness is cool. So, shout out to Russ Johns over at the Pirate Syndicate. You can also check out his broadcast every Tuesday, Wednesday night at 7 Arizona time, and Tuesdays and Thursdays, 7 a.m. Arizona time. I know it sounds funny, but you got to say that time because Arizona is the only state in the union that does not use daylight saving time. So their time changes never happen. Everywhere else does. So if you're living in Arizona, you know what I'm talking about. If not, it changes twice a year. I know it sounds funny, but check out his show, Mr. Russ Johns. Thank you so much for doing this. And of course, one of our unofficial sponsors, but I'm going to make them for the sponsor of the show. I want to send a big shout out to Garen Belaney and Garen Parkins and the team over at Desk Rig. Um, those guys do a bang up job getting you out there into the virtual space. So if you're looking to upgrade, get going where you want to do, man, reach out to the people at DeskRig. And you can go there, www.deskrig.com, schedule an appointment, talk to um, one of their representatives that can get you where you need to be stepping up into the space there. So, yeah, I know it might be getting weird, but we're gonna bring it in. So, yes, DeskRig, thank you again so much. Unofficial sponsor of the show, and of course, over our design team over at Inky Black, you can also check them out as well. Um, I'm going to drop the link to um, their page as well, and I will actually have more production work for them next time that we come in here. So um, I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows about the sponsors here for our show. So I appreciate everyone here showing up and um, just wanted to be very, very gracious. And of course, putting up with the technical difficulties um, that are happening here on LinkedIn. So we're gonna put a big thank you to everyone who's been tuning in, guys. You are the lifeblood of what we do here. So I just got to give a shout out to all of you as well for, again, us as streamers. We're trying our best to work through a lot of the issues that do happen. This is part of what we do as live stream creators. So we find workarounds, we find solutions, we troubleshoot, we get these things done, but we are here. So now that we got that out of the way, let's get to the fun part. I want to give a little bit of intro to our guest this evening. I met this gentleman through hours and hours of listening in on Clubhouse conversations. Um, this man has it was first of all, I felt like a kindred spirit. He has a passion much like mine that he does into the audio world. He's been podcasting since 2010, folks. And he's also been an audio engineer. He's actually owned his own studio. He's been a top 100 podcaster, a writer, speaker. He's been a teacher. He's done both growth and monetization for people doing podcasts. So, I mean, this guy, as he says in his own bio, he eats, sleeps, and breathes podcasting. So I wanted to bring him on. So we're going to talk about audio today, because I think that is another big issue for us as live streamers. We understand the gear part. We understand the lighting. We understand the camera work. Some of us have issues with the audio part. So I wanted to bring an audio expert on to share his expertise. So guys, without any further ado, please help me welcome to the show, Mr. Tanner Campbell, folks. TC, how are you, my friend? Thank you so much, first of all, for doing this. And we're going to, again, we got to mess this around, because you're Tanner, I'm Gabe. There we go. We're going to switch it up. So I wanted to, first of all, say thank you so much for taking the time to come on here and do the show. Also, I got to give a thanks as well to Pedro Marcial, because without him, I would have never discovered you. Just because simply I was following him. I knew him through the live streaming world, not even through podcasting. So I want to reach out to him, give him a shout out. He's actually here watching the show. So I pin his comment in here. You can actually see, there you go. And whoa, we're having more technical issues. So this is something, folks, this is the fun part of it. So we're going to bring him back in. He keeps getting kicked out, but that's the fun part. We know how to work around this here.
This is a real rodeo, man.
It is a real rodeo. This is what you get. But hey, we're gonna fight through this. This is not the first time I've had to deal. This is one of the issues that I wanted to talk about. So let's just jump to that first, and we'll go back into your journey. But in doing any kind of, either whether it's podcasting or live streaming, what I'm doing here, you have to learn how to, through experience, learn how to troubleshoot things to see what are some of the issues. So let's just say, in terms of audio engineering and podcasting, what are some of the issues that you see regularly that a lot of, say, new podcasters run into when they're, whether it's through equipment, whether it's through interfaces? What are some of the things that you see that are usually pretty simple to kind of work through and be able to still get a good quality product?
I think probably the first one is most young podcasters, we'll just say new to the medium.
Yes.
One of the biggest mistakes they'll make is they'll record everything to a mono track, or they'll record everything to a single track. And so when you go in to edit your audio afterwards, everything is, let's say you overtalk someone, you speak at the same time I speak. If we are not on separate and distinct tracks, you cannot remove one voice without necessarily removing the other voice. And so a lot of podcasters will start by using recording solutions like what we're doing here. StreamYard, in fact, just recently added the ability to have separate tracks. That's true, right?
Yes, it is. So on the professional plan, so watch this. I'm going to catch this before it even happens. He's going to pop back in just a second. And yeah, you're going to see me watch this. There you go. Watch this. I was already prepared for this. So
I can hit the rejoin button as many times as StreamYard makes me do it.
Exactly. So you're kicking them out. But yes, so for those who don't know, on the professional hired play plans, you do have the ability to download separate audio tracks. So tonight, say something like this is happening. Your audio, you're popping in and out. This is the perfect example. Oh, you know what? I'm glad this happened.
It's a gift. Thank you.
It's a gift. Thank you, StreamYard. Thank you, LinkedIn. Both of you. So see how something's happening here tonight. He's popping in and out. There might be technical difficulties, but again, at the end of the show, when everything's done, if I wanted to, when I download both the files of my audio, which is continuous, and his that's popping in and out, I could actually go back there and rework the audio, edit out, and make it seem seamless. I love this. This kind of works into the advantage of what I was doing without even planning it. So this is what I say to a lot of individuals who come in here and wanting to learn how to do any kind of craft like this, whether it's through the audio medium of podcasting or whether it's sitting behind the camera and doing the presence of live streaming and talking. So I love to talk about these issues of troubleshooting because I see so many young individuals getting into this who don't have the experience struggle, right? And it can be frustrating, correct? I mean, it's one of those things where you see it and you go, I want to give up. I don't feel like I can do
Well, you think
work
about
through
how
this.
much hard work, time, and energy and passion goes into trying to. We just want to be able to hit record, and we're like, oh, great, we did all this work, and now it's work.
And it's and and regardless, so I'm gonna swap over here because I'm gonna be on this side when he pops back in. Um, but yes, this is part of it. Is the fact that when you go through and you pull it back in, and here we are again. We're still hey,
It's like I think it's happening on a fixed. It's like happening every 3 minutes. It feels like.
well, there again. They've been having issues, so um, it's okay. I'm kind of thrilled that this is how this episode's gonna work because I'm gonna show people what happens when you're actually put in the time and effort and act like a professional to still accomplish what I'm going to get across because there's still things that I want to talk about.
So what's happening right now could be a total nightmare, right? If you were just recording audio, what you might end up with at the end of this, Gabe, and you'll find out if you will, is you're going to have like 15 pieces of audio for me and only one for you.
Yes.
But if you were only recording to a single track, it might be the case that you just would you either wouldn't get that audio period, or that audio would superimpose itself over other differently on the timeline than it actually happened. So maybe the time that it takes me to rejoin, that offsets the audio recording you would get, which would be over the conversation we were just having. Things could get really weird.
Yes, right. And now I can actually now time it out. So this is, I mean, again, this is what you have to do sometimes as a professional in working through troubleshooting. So again, now that people kind of see how you've done and worked around through this, cool. This is really wonderful. I wanted to get into your journey a little bit, right? Because you've been podcasting.
So great.
It is wonderful. I'm happy for it. You've been podcasting since 2010, and even before then, there's one of the anecdotes that that you had kind of mentioned, and this is where we're just going to do this. This is where here we go. So let's get into this. This is going to be a fun one. But the whole journey of how you got started, there was an anecdote that you just shared about when you were younger that you and your sister used to record Pound Puppy episodes.
Yeah, so we had people of a certain age will remember this toy. Probably most of us here. It was Play School Mattel, and it was a plastic recorder with a little like telephone cord, plastic microphone, and you could record to it. And this had to be, I mean, I don't know when the Pound Puppies were popular. I would think like 91, 92, like somewhere in there. And we would watch an episode of the Pound Puppies, and then we would turn on the recorder and we would review the show, which is what a lot of modern podcasts do. They review something, movies, what's going on, current events, and then we would take the recording and we would go down to my grandmother and we would play it, and she always acted like she cared, which I appreciate. But I think I may have been, in fact, the first podcaster in 1992, 1991, maybe.
1991. Look at that, and those roots are buried, and it kind of just has kind of led you down this path. So, what was what would you say was that moment for you that when you first started podcasting that you said, you know what, this is something I could stick with and just see where it takes me? Because it's like a lot of us, we don't get into this with a plan. Sometimes we just get there and it develops around us.
So I never thought that I was a creative person, because when I think creative person, I think, oh, we're drawing, we're an artist, we're a painter, we're a singer, we're a musician of some kind. I was always very
He was so let's keep him in here. Gabe is sitting here waiting to return. Let's get it as fast as there we go. As fast.
This feels Sisyphusan is how this is. Like we're just rolling this boulder up the hill. We're going to get this done, though, Gabe.
We're going to get this done.
Tanner, sorry, we're going to get this done.
It's done. Thank you.
So I'd say it was about 2010, 2011, 2010, I think, where podcasting really came onto my radar. I didn't listen to them prior to that. They've been around since 2005, 2006. People were creating podcasts. There were tens of thousands. Now there's like millions. But there were tens of thousands at the time, which is not many compared to today.
Yeah.
But I didn't listen to them. And when podcasting came across my radar, it was exciting to me because I didn't feel like I had an important message to share.
Mm-hmm.
But I did feel like, I am exactly nerdy enough to be able to like write my own XML document to make an RSS feed. And I could do this. This is a thing I could do.
Yeah.
And I suspected that maybe because I had a strong IT background, I was in IT for 20 years, I thought maybe my competency in IT could help me to discover that I was actually creative in this medium that I had never before explored, which is really just me talking. Because podcasting is great for somebody who likes to listen to their own voice or likes to tell stories, and I'm guilty of both of those things. And so I found through podcasting that I actually was creative. I had just never been able to express it because there wasn't a medium available to me to do it.
And you found it. Once you found it, right, it's one of those things that you feel like a duck to water.
Yes.
It doesn't, you don't, this is what, for me, it's like I'm listening to my own story, except you're telling it through talking about podcasting. For me, it's been live streaming. And that has been, for me, part of the fun part about it. And that's where, yes, put the gun to the head. That's all right. You know what? I got pre-rolls ready to go. This is why I'm a professional. So the next time that you pop out and we do this, I actually have a video from one of your beginning courses. So watch this. I can actually.
No, you don't.
So when you did one for Portland Pod, right?
Yeah.
I actually have that. So when you go out, this is what we're going to
Hey everybody, Tanner here from the Portland Pod. If you don't know who we are, that's okay. We're a small commercial podcasting studio in South Portland, Maine. We work with independent podcast creators and businesses here in Maine and abroad. And
so I got that ready to launch. So the next time that you pop out, I'm just going to start playing the promo there because I love that. When I checked it out, because I love to do deep dives on people. You were at that point, you were still in Maine. For those who don't know, he is now in Colorado, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. But then back then he was offering, this is how much he's like me. He's got a heart like mine. He was giving away a free course.
I still do that.
He still does. He still does that.
My accountant is not happy with me. My bookkeeper thinks I'm an idiot.
But but again, I love the fact that you kind of do that because you do have a passion to help other individuals achieve their goals of wanting to become a better creator, a better podcaster. And it's like the same word for me, except I change it for live streaming. It's interchangeable for what you do and what I do. They're very similar along those lines because my agenda, my mission is to help live stream creators elevate their game. So we're going to go, watch this. We're going to go back to, now we're going to do this. We're going to do this.
Hey everybody, Tanner here from the Portland Pod. If you don't know who we are, that's okay. We're a small commercial podcasting studio in South Portland, Maine. We work with independent podcast creators and businesses here in Maine and abroad, and we help people make podcasts. We basically do the editing, engineering, and marketing for them. But that's beside the point. The reason I'm making this video is to let you know that our podcasting course, which is pretty popular and very thorough, I think, for beginner podcasters, is now free. Free $99, $0. Used to be $197. As of today and forever, it's free. It's a living course. You can ask questions in it. I will answer them. And it's always being updated when it needs to be updated, which is, a couple times a month probably. And you can check it out by going to portlandpod.com, selecting classes, going to creating a podcast rather. And then you just click on get access for free. enter your email address, accept the terms of the course, which you can find at podia.com, which is the platform we have the course on. So if you care to read that, you're welcome to. Nothing sneaky in there, I promise. And you can check out the contents of the course here. As you can see, there is quite a bit to be covered in the course. And again, just to drive this home, this is for beginners. This is for people who are starting their first podcast. However, even if you're not a beginner, one lesson that will be particularly interesting to you will be the Facebook advertising tutorial. And I would encourage you, even if you don't enroll in the course, to at least check that out. It's a 51-minute long tutorial and walks you through some really good stuff on Facebook advertising, which every podcaster could use. So that's it. I hope that you find this course useful. I know that you will. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
Wow. So this is something that he was doing back in 2000. He was already at that point in Maine. So he was probably doing this. When was that? You say circa, 2016, 17, somewhere around there?
That was probably 2018.
2018. I couldn't remember. Yeah.
And shooting that little video. I am not a videographer. Okay. So I think I had my iPhone on one of those. Yeah. What do you call them? The things that hold them still and you can move them around. And
yes.
And I'm like, oh, let's get a shot of the stairs and let's get a shot of this hallway. Like I'm some kind of director that knows what the hell he's doing. But I thought it came out okay.
Well, there you go. See, people love this. They loved it. And this is, but again, you see the fabric of kind of why I really was drawn to who Tanner is as an individual and what he does, because literally 2 weeks ago, he did maybe 3 weeks ago. I think it was 2 weeks ago. He did a clubhouse room talking about people beginning their journeys into podcasting. You actually gave tips and that people can actually use. You gave a whole presentation, and then you took Q&A afterwards. It's great. I love that.
Well, I just think there's not a lot of it, and unfortunately, and I'm sensitive to it in this space because it's my space. But of course, in every space, there are people who are willing to. They kind of talk out of both sides of their mouths. They don't really say anything while they're saying what they're saying, and they're supposed to have answered questions for you, but invariably at the end of every one of those discussions is some kind of carrot on a string for some kind of dollar amount, and if you want to be successful, just get my book or just go here and get this free PDF. And I fucking hate that. I hate that a lot. So I try to never do it.
Well, and here's the part about it that I love, that you actually do this, because when I put all this together and you actually get to watch it, folks, it's going to be great. I'll edit out. This is going to sound better than it actually does visually, but when I put it all together and splice it, it'll be like a seamless conversation.
I feel like the most useful version of myself is when people can put a question directly to me, and I can answer it, and I can just help them. Because people don't have time. Like, this is a nice time to do what you're doing because a lot of people are at home. It's also Friday, and as we get older, we have increasingly fewer things to do on Friday nights.
Right.
Here I am in my old man sweater in my booth, and like, this is all I have to do today. So I don't know. People don't have a lot of time, and it's nice that if they're going to give you some of that, their most precious commodity, I guess you could say, it's nice that you would actually give them the answers you promised you'd give them.
Yeah. So to answer your question, selfie stick, remember, that's what it's called. A selfie stick. I love my audience. They're great. They're interactive. They come here and it's part of, this is what part of, like, for me, the visual medium that I create, because I thought about doing podcasting. I still have a very deep interest in it. How many rooms would I go in there and just listen? I hear people listen because not only do I feel like what you guys are sharing, they go in there and talk about the medium that you guys, but you're delivering value to people who essentially might not start with the skill set they need, but based off of what you're giving them, the tips, the advice, the guidance that you're actually having direct access to some of these, that you're actually having access to some of these really experts, right? You can, to me, this is where the fun part about helping out individuals do what they do. Um, so I'm very, very much appreciative of what it is that you kind of offer. And this is, look at this. This is saying I can actually keep you and the other stream, because what's happening for some reason, it's kicking you out of the stream. It's creating another stream. It's like somebody keeps coming in and out. But
You're going to have a lot of audio files, my friend. I am so sorry.
no, that's fine for me. Because I love this about what it is, because it shows, to me, this just shows the unique beauty of what live streaming is. This is not edited. You cannot go back and change what's happening. You get what you see. So to me, it's always about making the best of any situation. I talk about the horror stories all the time, and I tell everybody that as you get more experienced in this, you know how to handle these. I mean, we haven't lost our cool. We're like, you know what? Let's roll with it. Let's play it into actually what we're talking about. Because I think, again, this is how doing what I do, doing what you do, kind of integrate with each other. We all have the capability to go, you know what? I want to create something. And guess what? There might be roadblocks. There might be things that get in the way of what you're trying to create. No path is straight. Nothing is perfect. And guess what? You can still come out better for it on the end, because then you walk away with something like this and you know how to deal with it afterwards. I mean, I've seen so many people who get the, oh my God, deer in headlights. I've lost my guest. What do I do? This is what probably like guys like me and you do. We coach people through some of these situations. This is why I always ask people when I talk to them, if I see somebody post an issue or something or say something about an issue, I always mention to them that I say, hey, did you figure out what the issue was? And for some of the people, they do. Some they don't. But that's okay. I mean, that's part of about all of this. So really quickly, I want to give a shout out to some of the people. Matthew Perkins showing up in the comments. Damon as well. Oh, Damon, I have to say, okay. So Pedro's saying, let's see if we try this. We're going to try and troubleshoot on the fly. If you both refresh your browsers, it may clear up the issue.
I just closed my browser and opened up a private Tor window, so maybe that'll fix it.
Well, you know what? Yeah, that's another way. You can actually work, and if you open up an incognito window and then pull it in through there, it might actually help. So we're going to see if that works. I forgot about that. You can actually do that sometimes. So it helps with the resolution as well for those who don't know. So you see sometimes that you have the issues that might show up like that, where there's might be pixelation, your image might freeze. So if you bring it in through an incognito window and then open it up, sometimes that clears it up. So we're going to see if we can go 3 minutes without you popping out. Issue resolved.
Issue resolved. We did it.
The windows, the windows of heaven can open, and we're good. So, but I wanted to also talk about in bringing in what we've kind of touched on a few other things, but some of the techniques that you can kind of give out to individuals who might be starting out in podcasting. So like, for example, people who get into it, right? They're excited. I've set up my podcast, and then they start doing interviews and not really knowing how to conduct an interview. So what are some of the tips that you usually give to people starting out in doing their first sort of couple of episodes? And then do you have tips as far as like what you offer individuals who might come to you and say, Tanner, I need help with show production? Is there, do you have any sort of strategies that you might be able to share?
I think the first thing and the most common piece of advice I give is first realize that no one is waiting on your podcast to hit the airwaves. There's no rush to get this out next week. I cannot tell you how many clients come to me and say, we want to launch a podcast and we want it out by the 15th of this month, and it's like the 8th. And I'm like, why? And they go, well, because they're waiting for it. And I go, they're not. I promise. When you put it out there, it's going to be like 5 listeners. And you don't need to rush through for the sake of 5 listeners to get it out there. If you could just spend maybe 2 more weeks being careful, getting things in line, getting your equipment, maybe doing a couple practice runs, which is the next piece of advice that I usually give is take a couple of weeks to record what you think are going to be your first and second episode. Record an episode week 1, record an episode week 2, knowing full well that you're never going to release those. Because the first time you step behind a mic and you are trying to have a live conversation with someone, especially if it's someone you respect in your industry who you really wouldn't want to, like you're like, oh, this is the worst. Everything's going wrong. It's my first interview. You want to avoid all of those things. It is really good to have some practice runs in, some dry runs, I call them, so that you can work out the kinks. Because there's a lot that can go wrong, and if they all go wrong on your first attempt, you will have no wherewithal to troubleshoot them in real time, because you'll have no, and then you'll start yelling at your IT guy or girl, and they'll be like, I don't know, I didn't even know you were doing this. So create some dummy episodes, I think, is a good general piece of advice. Get comfortable, break some things on purpose to see, have somebody say, okay, well, hey, drop out of the meeting right now. And we'll try to get you back in and see what that looks like, as opposed to assuming everything will go right just because you bought the right equipment or have the right account. Doesn't mean things are going to go right. I mean, look at you do this all the time, and we're having some stupid connection issue, which I dare say I haven't dropped out yet. I got through an entire answer and haven't dropped out. It might be solved.
It might be solved, but that's part of it, right? Cool. And I'm
kidding. I did that on purpose.
So. And this is what I love about like what you do, because you're, like I said, you're very passionate about how you actually share a lot of your wisdom, because most people who seeing like the explosion of podcasting and kind of seeing where it has taken off, you've been one of the individuals who like really took the time and opportunity to learn at a very difficult time, because like you're doing it now, the technologies have kind of skyrocketed the ability for everybody to do this, where actually back then you really had to know a lot of technical knowledge to kind of put something together. A really good viable product that you wanted to put together. Where nowadays, with Anchor and stuff like this, you start with your phone and talking, and I know that that's a touchy point, but it's a technology. And this is what I talk about as well in doing what I do with your live streaming, and how I started 2 years ago doing this, and where even in the 2 years that I've seen it from where it started to where it is now, exponentially, the technology has made it so much easier for individuals to kind of get into doing this and still look very professional, and I wanted to ask, so in your own opinion, and this is, again, I love your opinion.
I'm reading Emily's comment. That's let's talk about what Emily just said after you asked this question.
Okay, well, let's hop in this, because this question can actually wait, because it's going to be pertaining to stuff down the road. So I wanted to actually get into this, but let's go ahead and ask this because Emily's one of the individuals that has a live stream and actually takes a live stream and does it and turns it into a podcast, or she has somebody turn it into a podcast, I believe. So she does outsource her audio to somebody to get, I don't know what they use, but let's address her question. And she said, I had the hardest time speaking into the microphone for my first episode when I talked about myself and why I started the podcast. Finally, I asked my son to interview me for that episode, and it worked out great. What do some of you that you kind of give people in saying, hey, it's great that you have a nice microphone, but the presence to go behind and say, there's nobody there. It's you just and a microphone by yourself.
Can we, I'm watching all these great comments go by, like in the sidebar right here. And, okay, so listen, do what you just did. Talk to me right now, but lean forward and get closer to your mic as you talk.
Right there, like that.
Oh man! Now back up and say, "Hey Tanner, how you doing?"
Hey Tanner, how you doing?
Now get real close again and say, "Hey Tanner, how you doing?"
Hey Tanner, how you doing?
Which one of those sounds better?
Up close, of course.
It sounds so good, right? It sounds so crisp and clean. And if you're listening to this as a podcast production, you're like, "Oh, I like the way that second The second one sounds a lot better because I can't hear the room. And when people first start podcasts, for some reason, I don't think it's for some reason, I think StreamYard had a real advent in popularity just before the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And it had a lot of use on LinkedIn. And then everybody got stuck at home in the pandemic. And they're like, I want to start a podcast. I've seen this LinkedIn thing. I've seen this StreamYard thing. So I think maybe a podcast is a video thing. And I've got to have StreamYard in order to do a podcast. A podcast is a video thing now. A lot of people think of it that way. But a podcast is, while you could always have done video through RSS, even in the old days, for better or for worse, up until about 2019, or maybe 2018, podcasting was thought of as a strictly audio medium. That's pretty much when people said podcast, oh, yeah, like radio, right? Like with my ears, that's what I'm doing.
Yes.
And since the pandemic, we've seen an explosion of, thank you, James, we've seen an explosion of the people creating podcasts with video. There is no study on this. There's no statistic on this yet, but I feel like I would be willing to bet that half of the podcasts started during the pandemic had a video element like what we're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, when you produce for video, you're very concerned about what things look like.
Mm-hmm.
And you really usually want to get the microphone out of the shot.
Mm-hmm.
It's a desire. This is especially true with women. They don't want the mic in the shot, and they don't want to wear headphones because they don't want to mess their hair up. And when you're producing for video, those two things maybe are not as problematic. But as soon as you rip the audio from the video and publish it as a standalone audio product, now you have audio that was created for video, and you're releasing it as an audio product, and it doesn't have the quality that audio podcast listeners are kind of expecting. Get a lot of that room reverb like when you backed up off the mic.
Yeah.
And I think one of the best things to teach a podcaster, whether they're doing video or not, is nobody thinks this is unprofessional. Right? It's just a microphone. We're recording shit here, folks. Like, there's supposed to be one. It's no secret. There's one here. And the headphones are incredibly important to wear, because if you are, like right now, you're hearing me through your headphones. If you didn't have them on, you'd be hearing me through your speakers.
Oh.
But if you were hearing me through your speakers, your microphone, whose job it is to hear things, would also hear me, and then it would send that signal back to me. And so I cannot overstate the importance of wearing headphones, but I also can't overstate the importance of mic position to new podcasters. Getting close, this sounds so good. Like, Gabe, let's be buddies, dude. Like, we're best friends.
Always. You know this.
This is way more intimate than like, hey guys, welcome to my podcast. Like, it's not good. It's not good. So
well,
mic technique is important.
It is, right? And it's essential. Well, here's the thing is, right? So even taking into a visual medium, having the microphone in there are ways, and believe me, I see high-end streamers that know how to do mic placement and make it look seamless.
Yeah, you could buy $800 shotgun mic, never have it in the shot, and you'd sound wonderful. But you'd also spend $800 on a shotgun microphone.
Exactly, right? And for some of those that I've seen that actually put together a nice setup, my thing is, I'm working in a visual medium. You know what? They make mic flags. You know, if you're going to go ahead and brand yourself, take advantage of it. This is what I say, and this is just me strictly because I always adhere to what a lot of this in sales and marketing, what they talk about, the VAK. So if people don't know what the VAK, it is the visual, the auditory, and the kinetic. That's how they reach sales. That's how they actually do this in marketing. They do research to understand what visually is stunning to you, what sounds great. That's why you hear Muzak sometimes in stores and how they actually place it. And then the kinetic, exactly. And then the kinetic part, right? It is either through the sales face-to-face, or whether it is things through like using your senses. Like, say, bakeries use, I've heard this in Disneyland. This is a secret that they use. They take vanilla sheets and they actually bake them and put the smell into the air so that it touches the senses of people to want to go buy their cookies right there when they're by, for example, the bakery shop. And guess what? It sells. It works. I love that you use yellow. There's actually marketing that tells you what colors will actually pop that people visually stun to. Have you ever, next time you're on a roadside or you're driving down the highway, look at all the billboard signs and see what colors that they are. You're going to see a lot of yellow, red, white, and black. they spend time to market and do research to know what you like. And the same thing with the auditory part. You want to be able to say, if you're a consumer of podcasts, you know what you're looking for. You're looking for the crisp sounds. You're looking for a lot of the things that that you can actually hear and go, that person puts in the work, right? You see that, and I love the fact that, again, and I'm holding myself with bated breath right now because I don't want you to pop out, because I love, I'm just trying to get.
I think we're good. I think the problem is solved.
Yeah, but again, this is what we. Yes.
I think so.
Right. Me too.
I think so, Matthew.
There's a reason why, like, I pick red to go with a lot of things there, but again, understanding what a lot of these things are, I think if you take advantage of them, if you use them into what you're doing as a creator and taking in the techniques, like things that you've kind of shared, you'll learn how to do a great presentation. You'll learn, yeah, whether it is through speaking, whether it is through visually what you see, or with it, even for me, the kinetic part of how I connect with people, I do it through the chat. I bring those people in to get engaged. That's the virtually kinetic way that I can bring them in and feel like they're part of our conversation, and they actually add value to what we're doing.
And you have a killer. I was really impressed by, like, the run up, the intro. I love that. I don't know how in the world you're getting away with playing Stone Temple Pilots, but well done.
Welcome to the world of LinkedIn. LinkedIn is still the Wild West when it comes to licensing rights and everything else, because they don't have. This is what I love. Just like when they had the technical issues with streaming, they don't have the softwares in place to kind of do what the audio recognition that YouTube, Twitch, Facebook will do, where they hear that and they recognize it as a licensed thing, where they'll send you a copyright strike, they send you whatever, and then you get a message saying that you cannot use this audio unless you have. LinkedIn doesn't have that. So guess what?
You guys, what Gabe is saying is that he's not white hat. He's not black hat. Gabe is a gray hat character.
Exactly.
I'm going to beg for forgiveness.
So essentially, even when I was streaming to YouTube, this is actually streaming to YouTube right now. When I'm done at the end of the show, I'll get a message from YouTube saying, we muted the first minute and a half of your audio, and this is just a warning. And then you can move on, and that's what I usually do anyway. And this is why I strictly now concentrate all my efforts on LinkedIn and nowhere else. The only reason I'm streaming to Twitch and YouTube, which I already have set up and I've used in the past, is because we were having technical issues and I still wanted the show to get out there if it wasn't. But I think music wise, they're just those sort of things, they're still behind. At some point it will come to a head and we'll have to adhere to the rules, which I already know what the rules are, but I'm going to take advantage of it.
So Matthew just said, if you could put his comment up. Matthew,
yes.
I'm not trying to call you out, but this is wrong. And people need to know that this is wrong. There is no amount of music that you can use without a proper license unless, this is the caveat, unless you are discussing that music academically. That is fair use. So if you're like, let's talk about the guitar riffs in this song, and you play some of that song to review the music, to talk academically about the thing that you've just played a clip of, that's different. And if you're a podcaster who uploads only to, or who uses Anchor as a hosting provider and only plays their podcast on Spotify, then you can use full-length songs for free, no licensing. Spotify is causing all kinds of uproar in the music industry because they're letting this happen, but you as the creator are allowed to do that. However, if you were to upload your podcast to Anchor, distribute it to Spotify, put a full-length song in it, and then also send that song elsewhere, like let's say to Apple Podcasts, the part where the music played would just be chopped out. It wouldn't be there.
Yes. So even like what you were talking about with the YouTube thing, there's even some issues that you're not even guaranteed to do that in an academic sense. Rick Beato, I don't know if you're familiar who Rick Beato is, but he goes and he does music reviews, covers, teachings of of how chord progressions and stuff like that of popular songs, right? And I mean, he's been times that he's been flagged and they take down the audio, and he does high quality production. So this is why he gets pissed off.
Well, and the reason that's happening, and this is why I recommend nobody ever, not because it's illegal, you can do it the right way, but because these little, I call them licensing fairies. they're just out there and they're listening.
Yes.
They're like trying to figure out whether or not you should be playing any of their songs, except the technology is not in place for, even if you, let's say you go to BMG Music and you get a license to play Stone Temple Pilots, you pay the money and you can do it. Those little licensing fairies will still hear it, and they have no way to check whether or not you have that license. That's not built into the system in any way. Like, I'd like to see a future where you could put in a little snippet of code, like in your podcast description for the episode or something like that, that the little licensing fairy could look at, run against a database and say, okay, we don't need to flag that because that is a license key that should be there. It matches with the RSS feed provided at the point of purchase. All good. But right now, even if you're licensed, if one of those license fairies hear you, they'll still issue a takedown order to whoever's hosting it. And you'll be able to fight it, but it's a process. You won't be wrong. You won't get in trouble, but the episode or the song will still get taken down. So there's a thing called royalty-free music from places like Epidemic Sound or Artlist.io.
Yes.
And these are, while they are not the things most people want to use for obvious reasons, I mean, who wants to use that over, like, their favorite Jay-Z music or whatever it is.
Exactly.
The reason that I suggest people try to use those, and they are getting better, is because they don't send those licensing fairies out because they know that people are using this music all over the web, and they're not going to fight people on it.
Yeah, right. And yes, and then you're correct, Erica. They will catch up with LinkedIn eventually.
Oh yeah, 100%.
They will, because
they're trying to catch up with Clubhouse right now too.
Yeah. So, but so here's the thing. Like, so I think if the music industry were smart, and they're not always smart, but if they were smart, they would do kind of like what the film industry does. So if they don't send you a cease and desist, what they do is they hit you with the revenue share. So you can still monetize your channel. They're still allowing you to be creative with that piece of movie, whatever it is.
But you're paying a royalty.
But you're paying a royalty for it, right? And my thing would be this, like, isn't that the best way to kind of, allow a creator who can take something and actually repurpose it to something even more creative and actually spotlight the original piece of work and make it great so somebody can go back there and go use it again. And I think they do it right. That's probably that for me. That would be the best way to kind of approach it. But again, I'm not a musician. I'm not an artist. I don't know the struggles that they might go through.
Which is why for the last hour of this interview, you will be watching Home Alone. Enjoy, everyone.
Exactly. Right. Well, it's because now listen.
Do you see what Adam just said?
Yes. This is what I was going to get into. This. It's because of oh gosh, why is his name something? The drummer.
The drummer of the Eagle. I don't know.
Don Henley.
He's a guitarist, I thought.
No, Henley actually does the drums. He's from Texas, as a matter of fact. So Don Henley actually is an advocate for going to courts, kind of like who Lars Ulrich is, if you know who he is, as well from Metallica. They are huge in going out there and fighting for artists so people cannot use their music, their rights. Yeah, exactly. Don Henley's took me a minute to get that.
Those litigious sons of guns.
Exactly. So that's why I know exactly what he means when he says a team of 60 people on staff to flag Eagle music, because they don't want people to use it. And the same thing was the same for Prince when he was still alive, until he passed away, and his whoever had his will, now his catalog is everywhere. You can go, but for a long time, you can go on YouTube and find his music. If it was, you got a thing from Warner Brothers saying you must cease and desist this immediately. And now you can find it in commercial ads. So that's
Take
for me.
That, Prince.
Take that, Prince. Yeah, there you go. Can't take it with you.
You didn't want your music in a Ford ad? Guess what?
It's there now.
It's actually terrible. I'm kidding.
But speaking back to which is kind of what we're going on, and I love that we can have these conversations here. Um, but a lot of the things that we're actually discussing are actually pertaining to what you want to do as a creator, and doing what I kind of like what I do with my live streams, what you do with podcasting, how you help people understand that, because they get into it, like you said, they don't know exactly what and will work, and then they find out things along their journey that they can't use this type of music to do their show intros. Like, oh crap, man, I wanted to do it. Because you're putting in tons of work into a recorded piece of audio. Guess what? If it's got that in there, boom, you're stuck. It sucks. Now you're gonna either deal with it or have to go back and re-edit it.
And if everything was in one track, ooh,
Yeah.
with a little bit of like with the fade in and fade out, you
Yes.
just chopped like a good 5 seconds of dialogue because you got to take it out.
Yes. So thank you, Erica. Erica, thank you so much. Good luck tomorrow morning. She does a live shows on Saturdays, so
Good luck, Erica.
she's in Erica. You
Get
do
close
good
to your
job.
mic, Erica.
Erica, get close to your mic. Work
Close.
on your technique, and it's okay to wear headphones over the ear. I'm a big proponent of it.
Yeah. I don't care if you have to do this, Erica. Just be like, "Hello, welcome to Erica's show."
That's right. So
It sounds great. Look at my mic.
Well, and again, because here's the thing for me, and this is why I teach when I coach people in doing live streaming. I say, if you see anybody that you invite on your show as a guest, and you see them with Bluetooth headphones on, you better damn sure make sure before you go live to tell them, are those things charged? Because if not, in the middle of the conversation you could be having, and if you've never dealt with it, and their Bluetooths go out, and all of a sudden now they're not getting audio, they're not hearing anything, and they're just doing. Then what do you do? This is
the IT part of me shivers when I hear people talk about this, because and this is not to take a swipe at anybody. I get it. Like we're all good at different things.
Yeah.
I suck at a lot of stuff. I'm good at 2 things. This is one of those things. But have you ever had to walk a guest through changing their audio output on their computer?
Yes.
They're like, where? The control panel? Where's the control? No. By the clock? Which icon is it? Is it the one that looks like a mouse pad? No. Like it's Bluetooth is a big no-no, not just because it will die, but in some cases, especially if they're cheap, not the people, but the headphones, there could be a significant delay, especially as they become lower on charge. You could get a more significant delay in the recordings. So to you, it is it's synced up, but you may find in the resulting recording that there's a little bit of drift, or you may even experience during the conversation that you finish talking or they finish talking, but you don't. You know what I'm talking about when there's you think they're still talking, but they're actually not because there's that delay.
Yeah.
So wired headphones are always best, and over ear particularly, because you want that isolation from the audio so it doesn't get into the microphone.
Exactly. That's what we call.
It's not pretty, but
yeah, that's what they call ingress. You pick up, and it comes in there, and just if your signal, imagine a signal is supposed to have a clean, solid feed, nothing interrupting it from point A to point B. And the moment that you allow it to introduce something in there, you allow yourself room for error, for things to happen like that. So I always tell people that this is why people are like, why do you wear those big old things on here? And why do you always have I've always worn over the ear, because again, number one, it helps me get a clear sound in my ear, so I know how to actively listen and respond to somebody.
Yeah.
I don't leave a source open for somebody that.
Karen just asked, why are earphones important? And Matthew said, so speakers don't bleed sound into your mic. So let's give an illustration of what that sounds like, because I can do that.
Yeah.
Just go ahead and talk.
Yeah. So, hey, everybody, how are you doing? So if you can imagine that when you're talking and you hear that, right, you hear that little sound, that is something that can go in here. And here's another thing that people don't know. When you have a separate tab open, sometimes, in streaming, here's the thing. I have a tab on here, right here, that I'm actually in my dashboard here, that I'm actually having the conversation with. If I have a second tab open like showing the broadcast and the audio is actually coming out from the broadcast, it is going to, especially if you're using open speakers, you're going to pick up the reverb and the sound. You're like, what's going on? I don't know. Oh my gosh. And you got to walk them through it.
I'm going to be a stickler here. It's not called reverb. It's called loopback. Loopback audio. When the audio is being repeated back to you, creating a loop. Reverb is what happens when you're in an empty room and you hear the reverberations, which a lot of people will call echo, which is close enough, I guess.
Yeah.
Reverb is just super long, super fast echo, really.
Yeah. So, but again, guys, this is what I love. You're learning here of some of the things that you can actually do, because I've seen, listen, Tanner, I take in, probably much like you, I take in so many live streams ad nauseum. I see a lot of the things that people make common mistakes all the time. And it's just letting them know, hey, try this. Thank you. There you go, Emily.
Teach one. We've done it. End the stream.
There you go. And yes, there you go.
All right, Zadina. All right.
Thank you so much for that's. And I'm like you. I see a lot of people who shy away from it because it doesn't look sometimes pleasing, especially in a visual medium, and they want to be able to go, oh, unless you're like you're an actual like sound engineer and you got inner ears that they spend thousands of dollars for, like the guys that perform on stage, and you don't see them wearing stuff over the phone, and you have somebody processing your audio separately or somewhere else. Cool, you do that. You look great. But as just a guy who's talking behind a microphone and doing these sort of things, look, this is just part of it, man. People. It's not what's always going to be that. People are going to be here for a lot of the times your message and what you can get out there. So I love sharing that with folks. So thank you so much that you're getting a lot of value out of this. And now we know, right? So guys, if we start hearing, we can do the course correction for people. Say, no, that's not reverb.
So go ahead and add that screen share I'm trying to do.
Okay, yes.
If you don't want a mic in your shot, y'all are gonna not like the price on this, but this is the reality. If you don't want a mic in the shot, you can get. How can I make it so you can see? Yeah.
Hold on, I'm taking out the comments.
This is a great microphone. You can put it well away from you. It could be 10 feet away from you if you want. 10 feet, 6 feet easily, and just point it at your face. And it's a great mic, and it'll sound wonderful, and it won't be in the shot. But you still better wear headphones, goddammit. You cannot get away without wearing headphones. Or alternatively, you can take that down. Alternatively, you can also you can get a lapel mic, right?
Yeah.
Like you can get a lav mic, a lavalier mic, I guess is the proper word for it. And Rode, RODE, makes something called the Wireless Go 2. I think they're in their second edition of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good. I've only got one USB port and use it for my Blue Yeti mic. But dumb question, but will the headphones work on Bluetooth? Is that reliable? No. In fact, what you should instead do is plug the headphones into the Blue Yeti, because I'm fairly certain that, yes, right? Oh, is that a Nano?
Yes. So as you can see, what I'm using here now, this is exactly what he's telling you to do. So you can actually plug in. You have control for your audio. You don't even have to have a USB set for just one port for your microphone if you need it, and hopefully your camera. If you have a camera, you should have one for that as well. But you can actually, if you're running short on USB ports, they actually have these smaller little USB connections like I use here. They work perfectly to add more ports.
You do have to be careful with those, because if you buy cheap ones,
yes,
you may find that certain devices, because some devices, and this is true of condenser microphones, which is what that is that you have in front of you and what the Blue Yeti is, they draw power. So you can plug your phone into your laptop and it'll charge. But if you plug it into a hub, if that hub is not designed to draw power through it and again to whatever's plugged into it, then that device won't work. Like, for example, if yours was plugged into a hub, it may not work if the hub's not passing power to the mic.
Gotcha. That's true. So yes, if you're going to invest in a small thing, and again, these are really, really inexpensive things to invest in that'll help you. They can expand a lot of the things that you can actually do. So by using one of those that I spent, I paid $49.99 for mine.
Yeah, that's a good price for a good one.
For a good one,
yeah.
Right? And it's enough to power my mic. I actually have it powering my just small things like my mouse. It's a wireless mouse and my wireless keyboard. So I'm not drawing a lot of power from it except for the mic, and I've never had issues with doing that. But again, it's about learning these sort of deals that people don't quite know about.
Can you put Zadina's most recent comment up there, the one she just did?
So which one? Is this it? I got a multi-USB port.
No, the next one. She's talking about spending money for the
yeah.
So this is really important. A lot of people who are watching this, I would assume, are thinking about starting podcasts related to their businesses.
Yes.
Because this is LinkedIn.
Yes.
Two things. Somebody earlier upstream said, just start. There's a lot of advice you would get from podcasting gurus. They're like, just start, figure it out as you go along.
Yeah.
It's the most obnoxious advice that I hear people get given because they act as though planning, saving, and strategizing are not the same as starting. They seem to think that starting means turn on the mic, record your first episode. It will be terrible. You will be upset. There'll be so much frustration. Instead, just start, yes. But if you want to get a microphone that costs $300 and you think you might need a week, a month to be able to afford the equipment you want, don't say, screw that. I'll just go ahead and just start. Saving is starting. Planning is starting. That's part of the starting process. And I just wanted to say that because a lot of people will think that they get stuck in this in-between state where they feel like they need to be perfect right at the jump.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, they're being told to just jump and not worry about being perfect. I'm not advocating for perfection on your first episode, but I am advocating for preparedness, for starting off better than you otherwise would start off if you just jump right into it. Like we talked about doing a couple of dry run episodes, just so you could work out the kinks. There's nothing wrong with doing that, and that could be part of planning and part of starting. And if you can wait a month and you'll end up with a much higher quality microphone, and maybe it takes a while for the shipping to get to you or something, it's better to start with those things than it is to start without those things and start off on worse footing. And that goes back to the idea that nobody's waiting for you to release your podcast, guys. Like nobody's standing out there like, when are they going to do this? My whole Wednesday is ruined because they don't have their podcast out yet. Like nobody is that excited about starting a thing they don't even know you're working on. So be patient, I think, is important.
Oh, and like I'm going to share here into the screen so she can kind of, because I think Karen, who was asking what thing this is, I'm going to share my screen so you can kind of see what I have and I use. And I think for anybody who might want to, again, it's a good investment to do something like this. So,
Targus makes good products. Targus and Anchor, Anker, they make good products as well. But this is about the price you'd be looking. If something is priced at this and it's got more than, if it's, what website is this? This is Google Shopping.
This is Google Shopping.
This is probably fine.
Yeah.
What I just recently switched to Mac, and so I got a new M1 Mini, a new M1 laptop, and the first day I opened it, I was furious because they only give you 2 USB ports.
Oh wow!
I'm like, how do I pay this much money and I need to get an adapter just to plug an extra thing in? It's so upsetting.
Oh no, not for that. It's not the 49. It's $49.95. Yeah, so sorry about that, Karen. I should have been a little bit more clear about what you could actually
Karen, if
buy.
Anybody tries to sell you a $495 USB hub, call the police.
Right? Or you know what? I got a few other things I want to sell you. One of the two. Thank you, Dana, for showing. I know that we had difficulties with our stream earlier. I do apologize for anybody who would try to go to the original event stream. But we can thank the people at LinkedIn for being so generous and helping us kind of show a teaching lesson today. We got a lesson out of it. This is silver linings. So you can always go back and watch the replay on this. And really quickly, folks, so if you don't know, follow the hashtag. I've created a hashtag here on LinkedIn that you guys can go to. It is the hashtag LinkedIn live streams. If you go there, you can catch all the replays of all the great LinkedIn live streamers who are now using the hashtag. It populates there. You can go find a lot of their events. You can also get the notifications there as well. A lot of great content creators who are creating live content on LinkedIn now populate their content there. So you go back, learn a lot of cool things, trying to make it as a small hub for everybody who wants to get into live streaming and maybe don't know how. So trying to coach them, same sort of deal. I spend my time coaching individuals who all of a sudden get their first they get their first message from LinkedIn saying, "Hey, now you can live stream," and now they don't know what else to do. So they come and looking around, and there are a lot of errors that I have seen happening lately because they don't teach you, unlike all the other streaming platforms like Facebook and YouTube and Twitch, where you can just turn it on and stream from their natively from their sites. You have to use a third-party broadcasting tool on LinkedIn. People are learning that the hard way. So they create an event here. You can create an event on LinkedIn. You can go in there and create an event and not have no stream or anything attached to it. So people just go there going, I don't know what to do. What's going on? I can't connect. Right. So I got to walk them through the process of teaching them how to do this. So I educate people on doing live streaming. That's my goal, is to get a better level of content creator on the platform here. So that's where I spend my time, my days, and I teach people to kind of bring on individuals like yourself to kind of help them walk through the processes, because there's about to be a whole cavalcade of individuals coming on here streaming for their first times and don't know about mic placement, don't any of this. So I'm building all of these shows to kind of help people go back and say, hey, look, you want a resource on how to do it? Listen to what Tanner told you. Go hold up to the mic, do your mic placement, how you can. These are tools for people going to use. Yeah. So I do appreciate you sharing a lot of your wisdom here. And I do apologize of how we started the show, but guess what? We've kind of magically worked our way to actually doing something useful here. I love this. This is great.
I one time interviewed Obama and forgot to hit record. I'm kidding. I never. He would not care about me. But I've done something close to that stupid. So
there you go, guys. So that even the pros who've spent like see, look, I can't even get to tell. Tanner has done what you've spent over 10,000 hours behind a console, working, editing, putting together a podcast, and still we're human. We make errors. These sort of things continue to happen, folks.
Can I tell a great stressful story?
Please do.
So I have been doing this professionally since 2015, and I've been doing it just at all since 2010. And I guess it would have been 2019 because it couldn't have been during the pandemic. A client of mine had a 100th episode live party, and about 100 people showed up to it. It was pretty great, and we had it at a brewery, and the brewery had like a room that you would give presentations in, and they had a PA and a couple microphones, and she had set the idea up in my head that she would need a mic for herself and a mic for her guest. That was all she was going to need. And I said, okay, well, that'll be simple. No big deal. I went in there with a very basic setup. I'm like, I can just do that with Audacity. I can walk in there with a laptop and Audacity, and like we could capture this right there easily. The evening before, so the venue is not open, my studio is closed, she says, actually, you know what, I'm going to need a microphone for the audience in the front and in the back. That's 2 additional inputs. Okay, you can't do 4 inputs in Audacity. And so it's like 9 o'clock at night, and I'm just reading this email, which she sent an hour before. And I'm like, all right, well, how am I going to do this? Yikes. So I run to my studio in the morning, first thing, because she's starting this at like noon or something, 1 o'clock. Run to the studio, and I'm like, the only thing I can do, I guess, is I can try to replicate the studio there as far as equipment. So I ripped out my board. I took a bunch of XLR cables. I grabbed as many mics as I could just in case she decided she needed 12 all of a sudden. I rush over to the venue like hours early, and I'm setting it up, and I'm like, all right, we're good. I've got the gaff tape down. I've got covers and rugs like over all the cables. Nobody's going to trip. We've got great mic mounts in the front and the back. I even threw in an extra mic just so people wouldn't have to pass the mic around so far. And I'm ready to go. And now it's like 30 minutes to start. and I think, oh, I should probably do a sound check. I should probably do a sound check
Okay.
now, 30 minutes before we start. And I realize that I don't have my my iLock. If you don't know what an iLock is, it's a little USB dongle. Think of it like a memory stick. It looks like that, but it has licensing information on it. It had my Pro Tools licensing information on it, and so I couldn't connect to the iLock because I didn't have it to like validate my product, so I couldn't launch the software with which I was going to record this session. And I'm thinking, oh shit, what do I do? What do I do? So I connect to the internet, and I'm like, all right, maybe I can download Pro Tools first. That'll work. So I download Pro Tools first. I install it. Pro Tools first is it's limited wear. So it'll like let you do some things, but then you got to upgrade to Pro in order for it to do most of what you want. And one of its limitations is the amount of inputs. So I'm like, great, so this isn't going to work. And then I downloaded, I think, Adobe Audition, and it wouldn't work. And I'm like, what am I going to do? So I wound up downloading Reaper, and I swear to you that it was not 3 minutes before we were going to start, and I'm sweating buckets. I'm like, this is it. I'm done. This is like 100 people here. This is my first live event in this state since I've opened this studio under this name. I'm sunk. I'm fucked. My business is over. Like, I was sure that it was going to be the biggest embarrassment. And then I downloaded a program called Reaper, which doesn't do licensing for the first 90 days, let you use it for free, and it saved my bacon 3 minutes before we started.
Oh my God.
And so now up until 2019, I have been doing this for, almost a decade, and I still made that mistake. So it doesn't matter how long you're doing this. There are always bumps. There's always something that goes wrong. You get too cocky, maybe you get too sure of yourself. You're like, I've been doing this for 10 years. I don't need to do a sound check 4 hours before we start. I'm going to wait till 30 minutes in, or nerves get to you. Maybe the guest is important. I think an important thing for all of us to remember, whether or not we are, Garen, whether or not we are doing this for our businesses or for our own independent passions, just don't beat yourselves up. Don't beat yourselves up.
There you go.
It's hard, no matter how much you know.
Who changed? Yes, that's the nature of the business, though. Sometimes especially when you're like starting out, right, and you're having to take those sort of risks and say, I have a lot riding on this, and you take those things and you work through them.
Are we over time? Because I have another story if you want.
No, believe me, I can go 2 hours if I want.
So when I first opened up the studio, this is my first brick and mortar studio in Maine, and before I actually have a functional studio, this room that I used, and before the expansion, this room just had a bunch of old sewing machines in it. And it was painted like aquamarine. Like it was a nightmare of a room. And I was editing podcasts from a little co-working space desk. And I was tweeting some of what I was doing. I was like trying to promote myself. This is before the business is formalized at this point, but there's no brick and mortar studio yet. Most of my work is just post-production. I haven't been in the state long enough to have enough people like know my name and be interested in working physically with me. And so I'm kind of just doing the Instagram thing. Hey, editing podcasts. It's so fun. Come, you need help with your podcast. I'll help you out. And so a couple weeks of that go by, and I get a call from somebody who owns the biggest PR company in Maine. Her name's Nancy Marshall, and the company's Marshall Communications. And she says, I see you doing podcasts. We have a podcast. We're tired of doing it ourselves. We do it in our conference room. We don't like the way it sounds. Can you help us with that? And I'm like, totally help you with that. What do you need? You're like, we need a place to record it. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm about to have this really cool studio, but I don't have it right now. And she's like, well, could I come by in a couple of days to come check the studio out? And I'm like, of course you can.
Of course you can.
It'll be completely ready by the time you get here. So I spend the next, I think it was maybe 3 days. I think the call happened on a Thursday and she showed up on a Monday because I think I had the benefit of the weekend. I spent that stretch of time going to Home Depot, building sound traps, building building broadband absorption panels, painting, ripping boards to like create a highlight wall, and outside of the space, which up until this point just contained sewing machines and like odds and ends from the building that no one was using, I was able to pull it together into a pretty decent looking space, accent space, and then outside of this, before the building became what it became, it was a podiatrist office. So immediately outside of, if you put that little video up that you put before, can you put that up again?
Yes. So we're gonna pull this up, guys. This is the beautiful part.
Hey everybody, Tanner here from the Portland Pod. If you don't know who we are, that's okay. We're a small commercial podcasting studio in South Portland, Maine. We work with independent podcast creators and businesses here in Maine and abroad, and we help people make podcasts. We basically do the editing, engineering, and marketing for them. But that's beside the point. The reason I'm making this video is to let you know that our podcasting course, which is pretty popular and very thorough, I think, for beginner podcasters, is now free. Free $99, $0. Used to be $197. As of today and forever, it's free.
We'll pull it back in there.
But you saw the space. Like, that was the space.
Yes.
Okay, so before it had nice swivel chairs and looked kind of professional, it just had a couple of old waiting room, like those cheesy, crappy, like mixed pattern. It looks like AstroTurf for the cushion.
Yes.
And I just had them in there, and I had this accent wall up, and I've got like mic lines running on the floor and gaff tape, and like it's so hobbled together so quickly. So she comes in on Monday, and she walks into the space, and she's like, "Oh, this sounds great." And I'm like, "Of course." I mean, like, you think that I just put this together yesterday?
Yeah.
And so we're having this conversation, and this is kind of going to what you said about entrepreneurs just have a tendency to say yes. Which
Yes.
can get us in trouble, but sometimes we have to do it, or we've got no shot. And so after a couple of, and by the way, like these little waiting room chairs, I had mic mounts on the arm of the chair. So it was so fucking unprofessional. But it was also Maine, and podcasts were not really, no business in Maine had, at least that I was aware of, like had a podcast before I got there in Portland.
Yeah.
I kind of helped to make those businesses do podcasts to start with. Anyway, that's me tooting my own horn. I shouldn't be doing that. So she's in this space, and I'm thinking, because I had a studio before this, and I'm like, this is Mickey Mouse shit. Like this, she's gonna know that this is ridiculous. And so after the conversation, she goes, "Well, I think I'd like to work here. It sounds really great. It's clear you know what you're doing." And I'm like,
I do.
And she's like, "Can you get me a quote? Can you give me a quote to let me know?" And I'm like, "I do those kinds of things all the time. I could do a quote right now, but I'm gonna need a day because I've got some other appointments." I think I said. I know.
Oh, I've done it.
And so she leaves, and I'm like thinking, all right, well, like, what am I going to charge to do this for? Because I had clients before, but I had no corporate clients until her. She was my first corporate big money client.
Ooh.
And I'm like, well, I can't charge her what I'm charging, like, kids in their basements with, like, Dungeons and Dragons podcasts. I can't do that. She would think I was an idiot, and also she'd say yes, and then I would severely undersell myself.
Yes.
So I came up with a price, which I won't share, but it's not what I charge anymore. It was a lot more than I charged at the time, but it's not what I charge anymore. And I put it up in a quote, and I sent it over, and she signed it like almost immediately. She accepted it immediately, and then I sent the contract over through like a Hello Sign, I think I was using at the time. And I remember getting that back, and I was like, "This is."
Yes.
It was not a large amount of money, and I'm like, this is gonna work.
Yeah.
Like, huh?
Exactly. I mean, look, I this is why, like, what you just shared, and listen to this. My first foray into doing remote producing was taking on a 24-hour live stream with 12
ones. It was, God, what a disaster.
With 12 different hosts using different tools, because here on LinkedIn you can only stream for 4 hours. So we had 12 different hosts, and then we had 4 to 5 guests every host was going to have on to do interviews. So I'm sitting here talking about, I got this. You know how many episodes I've done? I got this, right?
You know how many episodes I've done? 3.
Yeah.
3.
So I put this together, and I start looking at the logistics of it, and I go, holy shit, what did I get myself into? But it was the best. It was, for me, one of the best learning experiences, walking away from it afterwards and going, it works. That works. I can at least know that, you know what, I can recalibrate it and go back again for the next time, but I at least know it will I can actually pull it off, number one, and people will actually think he knows what he's doing. He's really good.
but and I think that's something that we think like we've pulled one over on someone. But the truth is, we do know what we're doing, and we're in the trenches, so to speak. We're like we're just in the trenches doing work.
Turn the light on.
It's the same. Everybody here has probably got IT stories, right?
Yeah.
I promise you, as someone who spent 20 years in IT and most of that in a service desk position, I promise you that when you call your IT guy or gal and ask how to solve a problem, they're Googling it. Like, we never knew, like, unless we had dealt with the problem like 400 times and had committed it to memory, I can't tell you like how many of the problems that you solve on a service desk are done by Googling.
Yeah.
Like, is there like a PowerShell script I could execute to fix this problem in Office 365 right now? And if it is, I mean, I know there's one, but I have no idea what it is. I'm going to have to Google it to remember what it is because it's like 60 characters long. I don't remember. And I think that's true of like any professional who's really competent.
Yeah.
And going back to that example where I got myself in that situation where I'm sweating buckets because it's about to be a live event, I was really stressed out in that moment. But the truth is that I was competent enough to navigate through 4 possible solutions in less than 30 minutes and bring it in under the wire and make it work. So that wasn't really a failure. It was a test. It was a test of everything that I had known and learned up till that point. And I think it goes back to like beating ourselves up when we're not perfect, because we're like, oh shit, I've been doing this for 10 years. I should know how to do this. I shouldn't be making these mistakes. No, yeah, you should still be making those mistakes.
Yeah. Right. That's how you, well, again, look, even as we mature and develop in doing this, we still have to learn as we move along, because again, just like you get too familiar with things and you start relying too much on one sort of technology, you can blink your eye and tomorrow there's going to be another software. There's going to be another integration. There's going to be something else that, guess what? If you don't do the continuing education to go along with it, you're going to be left behind.
And you know what the other side of that is, right?
What's that?
Oh gosh, a new piece of software. Let me buy that. I might need to buy that.
Yeah. Well, exactly, that is, right? I mean, it's look, but it's becoming a fabric of how we kind of consume whatever it is we want. So our iPhone 13, we could probably just drop $1,200 on, will be obsolete in less than, possibly a year. Yeah.
Well, not obsolete, just there'll be something better. And we'll want it because we always need the better stuff.
Exactly, right? So it's the higher resolution camera. It's the ability to have, whatever it is they put on it that makes the selling points that you go, I got to do. I mean,
I promise you the next time you have me on the show, if there's a next time, this is a $500 mic. The next time you see me, it'll be a $2,000 mic. And the next time you see me, it'll be a $6,000 mic. You're like, what are you doing? You sounded fine originally.
That's
ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And it's like what I'm doing now. So I actually have another mic. So I have a Rode microphone. I haven't popped it out. I haven't used it yet because I'm redoing where I'm going to be permanently doing my live shows. So I'm not taking out any of my equipment. I still have a Canon 6100A. I haven't pulled out. It's a DSLR camera. I haven't used it yet. I haven't done any of these things to put them in there yet because once I move everything in there and I want it the way I want it, then I'll be satisfied to take all of it out, put it on here. But
you're not going to be satisfied. You'll be in there for a month and then you'll be like, oh no, I think I need another light. I think I need another light.
Right. But that's, for me, that's part of it is to say, you know what? Even if you have all of these wonderful things, even if you have the newest and greatest gadget out there, right? So you have it and everybody can be impressed at what you have. But if you don't know how to actually use it and integrate it creatively into what you're doing in your productions, it's might as well just be a $600 paperweight or whatever, however much you spend on it. Yep. Use them wisely is what I tell folks. So I'm like you. Everybody says just start. I don't start with just start. I start with let's get a strategy. That's how I coach people into getting started.
And that is differently applicable depending on whether or not you are someone starting with a passion. Like if your podcast is going to be about, I don't know, if you're going to make a true crime podcast, which just seems to be the most popular thing in the world right now, or you're going to make a podcast about like learning to manage grief or something like that is a very
Good night,
personal
Dana.
journey for you, for example, that's different. Maybe you could just start that. Maybe you could just use your webcam mic for that.
Yeah.
Because there's probably not a financial element at the outset of that. You're not thinking of it as a business. You're thinking of it more as like some kind of artistic expression. And you can maybe spend 6 months having terrible audio before you get your shit together and save some money, and maybe that's fine. But since I deal mostly with brands now, when I hear somebody, this is not a current client of mine, I'm just going to use them as an example. But if somebody at IBM says they're going to start a podcast and they want to start it now and they don't want to wait to, we don't need to buy a $500 microphone. Instead, we're just going to use the built-in microphone on our laptop. I'm like, you realize that you are a fucking brand, right? And like, you can't do that. And I think it's the audio version of companies that didn't get why a website was important and why it couldn't have like flying toasters and MIDI music in the background,
Right. Exactly. Well, and so my friend Garen, who's probably, if he's still here, I don't know if he is or not, but so what they do is they outfit a lot of people who now get these sort of stipends to use for their virtual studio, for their home offices, their virtual offices now, right?
Yeah.
Right. So now they get some of these people as the remote working ability for people to work in their homes has grown. So it's the ability to kind of have people kind of who do this, who come in here and say, look at your space and say, you can upgrade this here. You can do this here. That's essentially what he does. Right. So he says, he's told me at times that when he pops on screen and he does virtual meetings sometimes with some of these guys who are CEOs that make 200,000.
The greatest thing about CEOs is they don't have any fucking time.
Exactly. Right. And they go in there and they're like, they first of all, they go in and go, holy shit, look what you got. Look what I have. Right. And then all of a sudden it kind of puts it into their space of, okay, I can do this. It's not for the guy in the basement who's doing his live stream talking about Dungeons and Dragons. If we're going to use that thing again, that's not going to work for you. But if you're the guy who's investing into becoming a professional gamer, right? You're going to invest into the tech because you're going to need a lot of elements to get the best product across to people going to see.
Yeah, and I think part of it is like when you start with just a personal passion, you're kind of figuring out whether or not this is something you're even going to enjoy. Whereas if you're a business, you're starting a podcast, that is you're either developing a brand new revenue vertical or you are trying to use that to reinforce existing revenue verticals. And there's no figuring out whether or not a podcast is good for your business. A podcast is good for your business. And the experience of that podcast, unless you could probably get away with it if it was internal, nobody's going to buy an expensive camera microphone for their internal Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
But if the experience of your public-facing media is separate from like your high-quality white glove experience of your brand, people are going to be like, well, what is this lazy shit? And that's one of the great things about working for yourself is you can just curse.
Exactly.
On LinkedIn.
That's
my favorite part.
All the time, even if you weren't. I always suggest it to people. This is, again, welcome to the Wild West of LinkedIn. This is
when I worked at United Way for a very short time. It was the job that I took when I first moved to Maine, and I actually had to have a meeting. I was pulled into a meeting because they're like, "You curse a lot," and I'm like, "I can't fucking curse."
Okay, yeah, exactly. I can't say that.
I'm like, "Okay, I don't know. This is how I talk. What do you want me to do?" It was pretty funny.
So, but this is why as things have learned and developed and grown around here, things like virtual summits that people do, and they do have these high-end speakers who don't fly out to the events sometimes. They still haven't. Everybody hasn't totally committed to being there in person, but you still want to be able to spend the money, give a good presentation. People are actually paying to either watch this hybrid event that you're putting on, and they want to see really great, crisp, clear audio. They want to see a really great picture because they're expecting you to, as a quote unquote writer or keynote speaker, whatever it is that you are, you still want to be able to get a really nice presentation. So I agree with you. I'm very much along those spaces when I kind of coach people in what they do. Look at that. Woohoo. You're not going to get any better than that. Um, this is the fun. This is the fun of it, guys. I love these sort of technologies that we can play around with. So, um, no, but again, to your point about making sure that people kind of have an idea of whether or not this is what I teach people when I say strategy and teach them. Do you see yourself doing this in 6 months? Because there is a commitment to it, just like you do. And this is more of a commitment for live stream shows, because unlike, let's just say, what you do in the medium of a podcast where you can batch record,
Mhm.
and if you wanted to say, hey, listen, why don't you batch record 6-7 episodes? When you live stream, it has to be live. There is no recorded, so you have to make the commitment to say,
I mean, you could live stream a pre-record, but
put
then
it.
you lose all the engagement.
It does. You don't get this what you've actually saw here tonight, right? So you don't see the people comments. You can't integrate people's questions in the comments here. You can't bring those in here and make it part of the interaction, which is what I push for a lot of streamers. Don't ignore. If you're just going to give a presentation, put it on fucking YouTube,
Mhm.
right? Unless it's to a closed business group,
Or do
which
it
I
in Clubhouse.
exactly. That's what I tell people. If you're going to do it, and you do something to those things. Speaking of Clubhouse, hello, Mindy, and yeah, yes, Garen, thank you so much. You're still here, okay? But when I tell people, if you're going to do just like a presentation like that, and you're going to do it, this isn't a Zoom in a closed sort of circuit stream where people are all there and they're all watching. You're broadcasting to an audience. You're broadcasting to people who are there, open eyes. So be present.
Are you about to throw a flip flop?
No, I'm good. There, leave the light on, please. Okay, thank you. I need you know what I'm about to
Leave the light on. No.
Leave the light on. Well, I need to buy one of those on air lights. And
you know, there's a really good one called, and anybody listening will be happy to find this out, because it's hard to find one of those that aren't really gaudy.
Yes.
Or are not required to be permanently attached to power,
yes.
which sucks. It's called the Busy Box.
Ooh.
So I don't know if it's busybox.com, but if you just Google Busy Box, the recording light, you'll find it. It's really good. They have two versions. One is I think like $50 or $60, and it's got little. You can swap out the. It's like a plastic material with the letters cut out, so the light behind it is red or green, and you slide that in front of it, and this, or they sell a 100% digital version, which I think is more like 130, and you can just control it from your iPhone. It's battery operated. You can 3M command strip it to your door. Yeah, it's great. It changes colors. You can put emojis on there. You can say, "Get out of here, kids, or you're grounded."
Yeah. Say, hey, we're recording here, so that's that's ideas. That's why, like I said, I'm having my own space worked on. So by the January of 2020,
space, I had to buy a box.
Oh.
My girlfriend's like, "You want to do what? You want to put acoustic panels where?"
In where are you going to put this at? So, you're already in the morning. We're streaming already in the morning here in Malaysia. So there you go. Thank you again, Emily, for being here. I appreciate you. You guys are awesome. Good luck on your coaching session tomorrow. Thank you for all the questions. And please check out Emily before you leave. Let me go ahead and make sure I promote Tanner here, because that's kind of the fun part of it. But you can also go check out his courses that he has for people who want to get interested in learning how to, to podcast.
Okay, hold on. That is true. Don't buy any courses from that address. They are intentionally priced high at that address so that you will buy them on AppSumo for way cheaper.
Oh yeah, the AppSumo for what, $49?
So like I have a Facebook ads course that I go through, and it's like $9, and I have an editing your own audio, it's like $49, and I have another course like $24. If you go to that site, you're going to pay I priced them at like $36, $4,800, just so people wouldn't buy them there. But I needed to host on Teachable, which is the platform I use.
Yeah.
But just reach out to me, guys. Like Tanner at tannerhelps.com, and if I've got a course that can help you, I'll just tell you.
Yeah, there you go. There's a website there.
And I have a podcast called Podcasting Sucks, which you can find at podcastingsucks.net, and it publishes every weekday morning at 3 a.m. Mountain. And you can submit questions, and I'll answer them in the same way that I've been answering questions here. And I'd love to have you as a listener.
Yes, and of course, guys, if you're connecting with him on LinkedIn, you can also go to his LinkedIn account. I put it in there as well. I did a lot of show prep, and I actually put like the starred comments in the show before we went live with the other event, and it kind of poo-pooed a little bit and messed up because the thing is when you add them in the comments, and you have to do this through LinkedIn. This is like the love-hate relationship that I have with LinkedIn. We don't have an open API, so we can't communicate back with our audience. I can see the comments, I can pull them in, but if I want to actually engage with them, I actually have to go through my own profile or something and put them in there. So I kind of do it preemptively before we go live, so that all the links are in there for like your website. I had it in there for the AppSumo thing. I had for your LinkedIn profile where people can go connect, because I try to make it easier for people to just say, hey, go click it now. It's an active hyperlink. You can go there and people can connect with you, but that ain't go work well tonight, but that's okay. This is part of it. So Gabe, I'm going to ask you later why your mic is louder than Tanner's. Because
I haven't turned mine up. Now it's really loud.
Plus, Tanner does this for a living, Jenny, if you don't know, and he actually has really good hardware interfaces that he can use and control volume. Where mine is just pretty much straight through.
This is actually an interesting thing that we didn't talk about is levels. It's a challenge when live streaming to get even levels. If you're in two different places, especially. If you're in the same place, you might be able to have some kind of interface where you can do compression and control. You can control it at the source. But mine is quieter because I intentionally, in this environment, record at about minus 20, minus 24 LUFS, which is a measurement of loudness, so that I can boost it in post-production. Podcasting for me is all post-production. Mm-hmm. I would be terrified to do what you do, Gabe.
For us, it's the other way around. This is the funny thing about live streaming. A lot of the work that we do is in pre.
Yep.
Only thing that we really go through and handle post is dealing with micro content and things that you can do to kind of use your branding and your digital assets. But other than that, most of our stuff has to be done pre, because again, when you're live, you don't have the opportunity to say, I'm going to go edit this. I'm going to go fix this out. And again, staying true to the idea of actually being live. So there are, again, like you said, there are methods to kind of use pre-recorded video to stream it live. But I'm going to tell you what, I break all the rules here, but LinkedIn looks down on it. They actually don't encourage people to use.
I think we've all been tricked by that one webinar where we show up and we're like, thanks for showing up. It's totally live right now. It's daylight out and it's midnight where I am. All the comments are pre-populated.
Yes.
Good point, Steve.
Exactly.
Why
and
are
that's
you answering my question?
Exactly. They're not going to understand that what it actually is to go back here and say, hey, this is, these questions are pertaining to the actual conversation and these sort of things. So if you're pushing for live engagement, this is doing the live and everything else here. The post-production the pre-production is everything, because even in doing virtual events, like when you do hybrid or events like that, a lot of things get done in post, but while it's live and people are there watching or people are going to be there, you better be on your P's and Q's and dealing with the pre and say, I got all this set up. I got all these things set up. Because for us, we have to have in a visual media market, we got to have things like a lot of people use like stingers like this. So that when you run into segments and you do things, or like if branding afterwards, like people because again, the better you do in your pre-production, the less you have to do in your post. So like when you brand off and everything, if you have your branding assets already ready. so I can actually go back afterwards and
Wait, who am I?
yeah, your meat. It's part of it. But again, for everybody who's like still thinking, first of all, still hanging with us, we're going a little extra today because we had so many issues, and I want to provide a lot of value because again, we had a lot of unexpected things to do. Yes, I only do pre-production.
And
That's good.
it's a totally different discipline.
It is.
This is why when people are like, "Should I add video to my podcast?" I'm thinking, no, no. What you should do is create a good podcast, and then think about ways to then create a great video experience. Don't try to 2-for-1 that stuff. Don't try to repurpose that. It doesn't. It robs one end or sometimes both ends because you're trying to find some kind of happy medium of as good of an experience as it otherwise could be.
Yeah, right. And that's all. And again, you're just listening, and hopefully everybody here picked up on this tonight. How much Tanner's passion is in audio and podcasting, and kind of helping other people learn the art of it, because it is an art. Just like I tell it is. This is what I do. Is my art. I said this is what I teach people, and I coach them. This palette that you see in front of them. This is what you get to share with people. People are going to walk away with this going, wow, this is why I put a lot of work into this, because I want people to get the wow factor, to walk away and say, I've never experienced anything like this on any other shows, and what you do, because this is my unique brand. And just like you would with your show and with your podcast, you want people to be, you want to be uniquely you. You want to be able to share what it is that you're thinking. So, yes, Tanner is an artist.
Oh,
now
thanks.
But
Appreciate
he is. So everybody, I think we've kind of come full circle real quick. But before we get out of here, I'm going to go just really quickly, some final thoughts. So projects that you got working on, or things that you're actually doing right now, as I've been asking a lot of people that come on here about going into 2022, things that you might want to share. Do you want to pub you? So let me know what you got going on for you, Mr. Campbell. Why not?
Oh, myself. Oh, I thought
Yes,
you were asking the audience.
No. I'm asking.
I am. So there are 2 projects that I'm really keen on seeing be successful. The first is the podcast that you've already mentioned, Podcasting Sucks.
Yes.
A lot of people think that's a strange name. I love podcasting, obviously, but there's so much of it that does suck, and I try to help people. It's really my way of giving back to the community. It's not content marketing for me. I just wake up every morning, I record for 15 minutes, cut it all together. If somebody submitted a question, I try to answer it, try to give ideas on what's going on in the podcasting world, how you could use that. And that's important to me to grow, because the more I can do that, the more of my influence will be passed on to people who are starting. And I think I have a particularly good influence. I think I have a very practical base of knowledge, and I'd like to see more people apply a practicality to podcasting than currently is the case, especially in the advice-giving space. And the other one is called Retold, Myths and Tales, which is completely, other than the fact that it is a podcast, it's divorced from podcasting. And it's me collecting stories that are, quite forgotten, really. I have a very large library of old books here. A lot of people, maybe they buy expensive cars. I buy expensive books that are no longer in print and are falling apart. And my girlfriend wishes I probably didn't spend so much money on books. But I bought this box, so she should be happy.
She should be happy. And yes, and Senor, I love your comment here. All I got for tonight's session is to find a Google reference so I can remodel it. There you go.
So that's at retoldthepodcast.com, and that is all about, I just tell stories. That's all I do. I find old stories, I rewrite them. I don't change them. I just take them from maybe the parlance of 1555 and write it so that it's a little easier to understand for a modern listener, but I don't change the content of the story. And then my friend Quinn does sound design and music for it. So every story is, between 5 and 20 minutes long, depending on the tale. I try to drop a new episode every other week. And it's a nice thing to listen to if you're into that kind of thing. So.
Nice. Well, I love that. And that's, again, we all have our sort of side of us that we really want to express. Like right now, I'm concentrating strictly on trying to find ways to kind of educate people here to do this. But my real love lies in doing human interest interviews, um, deep diving into people's like journeys, traumas, you know, their accomplishments, the goals, and stuff like that, and just learning about people and everything. Because just like you talk about books, that's how I equate interviewing people. Every person that comes on my show is a book to me. I get to open the pages, I get to read and hear their stories and experiences and learn. When I'm done, right, I take away what I've taken from that book, and um, I get to go and say, you know what, tomorrow I'll start again with another guest and read another book and listen to what they do, and it
Oh, I
just
like that analogy. Yeah, that's
it
cool.
kind of helped builds me up. I mean, the lessons that I've learned. I'm actually writing a book that's going to be published in March
Don't
of
say it.
this.
Don't say it.
No, no, no.
Don't give a date.
In
It'll
okay,
be 3 years after whatever date you give.
well, I've been working on this book for a while, so I already have a lot of it done. So what I'm really just doing, going back and getting a lot of quotes from guests on. So it's just really about my podcasting. I mean, podcasting. I'm doing it. Please shoot me now. I always tell people to differentiate between the both, and I know it's just a small thing, but I tell people there's a podcast and there's a broadcast. There's a little bit difference into. I kind of explain to them because they're like, "Oh, can I come on your podcast?" I said, "I don't do a podcast." What do you mean? You don't do a podcast?
But that's something that started to happen. Is almost like the term. I actually talked about that in this morning's episode. Is that the term podcaster is almost. It's so useless in identifying exactly what the product is these days because people use it to describe this.
Yes.
To describe a pre-recorded version of this, or to describe an audio-only version of this. And so it becomes, it kind of loses its meaning because it loses its specificity.
Right. And it's, but for me, as coming up and as I do, I kind of at least tell people if that's what it is, please understand why. I mean, it's just a ticky-tack thing that I've picked up. It's one of my quirks. It's just saying, you know, that's like saying somebody, and this is I always tell people like this so they can understand, right? How many varieties of sodas are there out there? How many? But when you say, can you give me a Coke? Right?
You don't always mean a Coke. That's
you don't always
true. Yeah, yeah.
Right? It's just like saying, can you give me a Kleenex? There's Puffs. There's all these other things, but because it sticks with the brand of what it is, I kind of like tell people, no, that's not what this is. I just, for some reason, wanting to know that what I do is not just one sort of thing, that it's actually something else to kind of identify with. And that's okay. You want to lump me in there, that's fine. I'll work around it. But I always kind of at least try to differentiate people to know the difference.
I sensed a little bit of Kleenex animosity there. Are you a Puffs guy?
I'm a Puffs guy. I'm not a Kleenex
Puffs.
guy.
You guys, there's also Puffs. I'm tired of them being sidelined.
It is, right? It's like everybody says, hey, do you have any Kleenex? No, I don't. Well, what's that? Those are Puffs.
My mother-in-law my mother-in-law will only refer to paper towels as Scott towels.
Towels.
Oh, really? Did you know I was going to say that? Did you say the same thing?
I've heard that before. I know.
Oh, it's bizarre to me.
Because you know, my mother-in-law, that's all she uses. She's used them forever, and that's what she calls them.
So
she calls them. That's what there's nothing else. She says, "Give me a Scott's."
Give me a Scott towel.
And I go,
"What is this bounty bullshit? I don't want this.
What is this? I don't know what you're talking about. This is insane." So yeah, that's just a small thing. But here, I digress from my point.
Yeah, my sit bones are getting stiff in this wooden chair. So
let's get everything wrapped this up, guys. Again, we've almost done this for 2 hours, and it didn't even seem like it, except for our bodies telling us this.
For our butt cheeks, yeah.
For our butts telling us that. So thank you again, Tanner, for coming on and having this conversation. And guys, please remember, you can also go check out his website and check out the podcast. It's, again, you guys are walking away getting to know a wonderful human being, an individual, and I do appreciate you taking the time, working through all the technical stuff and getting this done. I do appreciate it. And again, to everybody here that was here earlier, guys, you are the lifeblood of what I do here, and I appreciate you showing up here every Friday night. And we will be back here next Friday, 8 p.m. Hopefully 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, 9 p.m. Eastern, with our guest, Future Kane. She will be talking about mindset and how to get behind the camera and actually tell your story. So we're going to talk about that next week. Appreciate you so much, Tanner. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man, for having
Sit
me.
tight for a second, everybody else. We will see you again. You have a great evening. Have a great weekend. And please connect. Good night, everybody.